Erik is responsible for VeriFone's product marketing, which includes the retail, petroleum, financial channels, with special focus on emerging technologies, including EMV, NFC, and mobile point of sale. So please welcome Erik Vlugt.
Good morning, everyone. So thanks, Elliot, for that introduction. I, as Elliot said, spent a lot of my time on mobile. So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to deliver a talk here on mobile commerce and such. So what I wanted to do for this talk is sort of take a different angle than we all take every day. Wanted to look at things from a different perspective. So we always look for disruptive technologies, and that's where we think really the future is. That's what we look for in the media. That's what we all talk about. And I wanted to sort of present a different view on disruption and whether disruption is good or bad and how things change. So that said, we'll kick it off here. So every day when we live in this industry and we look at the press and we look at websites and such, we see these kinds of things. What is disruption? What are the disruptive technologies in our space, and how is it going to change the way we all do business? I would say that a real disruption is something different. We need to start looking at disruption as something that our consumers experience, and something that is not something, and disruption not being something that we strive for. So when you go into a store and you buy a new TV, in this particular image's case, and you have to stand in line for the privilege of paying $1,200 for your TV, that's disruptive. That's disruptive to the consumer. That is not a pleasant experience. When you go to the store, you're home, you want to go buy something, you get in your car, you drive to the store, you get to the store and it's sold out, that's disruptive to your day. If you then in that store cannot just convert that purchase to an online purchase from that same merchant, that's disruptive. When you carry around not only 5 or 6 credit and debit cards, but you carry around 12, 15 loyalty cards, that's disruptive. That's not a natural thing to do. It's not a convenient thing to do. So all of those things are disruptive to the consumer experience. And anything we do to innovate, anything we do to improve the consumer experience needs to be something that eliminates that disruption from the consumer experience. So let's back up a little bit. So if we look at innovation and changes in the retail environment or retail payments in the past 100 years, and this is indeed exciting, so bear with me. This is 100 years ago. This is a 18 megapixel color digital image of a store clerk 100 years ago, magically. So the model back then was that you walk into a store, you pick up the items you wish to buy, you put them in a basket or in a cart, and you go to the front of the store and you pay for them, right? Well, luckily, these days, it's a lot different, right? Wrong. Fundamentally, the way we shop hasn't changed in 100 years. You still, today, go into a store, grab a basket or a cart, you collect the items you want, and if you're lucky, you stand in line for a couple minutes, sometimes longer, to pay for those items. It's boring, right? There's not been a lot of change in that regard. Now, certainly, we could argue that there's been lots of change. We've had self-checkout come along. That's exciting, right? Sure, it improved the process of paying in retail. It improved the shopping experience at the tail end, but it didn't really change the process. It didn't fundamentally change the way we shop. So that doesn't count. Payment methods certainly have changed, and we live this every day at VeriFone, right? We've gone from cash way back to checks, which somehow we can't get rid of because we all get stuck in lines behind people still writing checks at the grocery store. We went from checks to credit cards. We went from credit cards to debit cards. We went to PIN entry devices. This is a 15, 20-year-old VeriFone device on this picture here when we started accepting PINs for the first time, debit PINs, if you recall, in the late 90s. And then electronic signatures came along, so you can now sign on a terminal instead of on a receipt. And then to today, a huge change, leap forward, devices that are much more like consumer electronic devices. They can play multimedia, animations, show you images, do branding, do advertising, accept all kinds of different payment methods, and that's sort of been the change in payment behavior. And if you look at the chart of how payment methods have changed over all this time, it's pretty much what you would expect. Cash, checks on the decline, debit, credit on the way up. So that's the payment side. Looking at the more general retail side, who is the face of retail in the 20th century? What retailer did everybody look at, and still do to some extent, but particularly up till about 8 or so years ago, what retailer did everybody look at for guidance? This guy, right? Sam Walton. Started Walmart. Walmart is the leader, is the largest retailer in the world, and everybody looked to them, what they were doing in innovation, new technologies, whatever they were putting in the stores, and that was sort of the gold standard. Well, how has that changed? Who today is a retailer that a lot of you as merchants look at for guidance on how to interact with your consumers? It's this guy, Steve Jobs, the Apple Store, right? And Elliot mentioned it earlier, and they're going to come back in this presentation as well. Apple and Starbucks are always examples. So what did they change? What did Apple change about the shopping experience? Well, they made shopping a destination. Shopping became a destination, the store became a destination for Apple. They created an environment where it was fun to go in, not necessarily go in with a specific item in mind to purchase, but it's fun to go in, interact with the products, talk to people in blue shirts, and get information on those products. Maybe buy something, maybe wish you could buy something, but create the entire shopping experience, turning the store into a destination. So that started happening when the Apple stores came along. In the meantime, in parallel, in large part thanks to Apple as well, smartphones came along, right? So this guy, he bought the first, wherever this was, he bought the first iPhone in 2007. And he was, as you can see here, very excited, being cheered on by the onlookers, and you know, he certainly is the demographic that you might expect to pick up the first smartphone. But then things started changing. Smartphones started finding its way into other demographics. Android came along, other operating systems came along, and smartphones became commonplace. Feature phones went on the way down. So even in the older demographic, these ladies playing whatever game they're playing, holding an iPhone. This kid here holding an iPhone. So you guys are still half asleep here. So the intent here is that the women in the audience go, "Ah," when I pull up this picture. So let's try that again. Thank you. Very good. Got to play your part here, guys. Come on. So Apple took that retail store experience and blended it with this whole smartphone revolution, right? So what did they do? Well, you all notice, because at one point or another, you probably have all bought something at the Apple Store. Mobile POS. They took an iPod, they took a payment sleeve, put the two together, and allowed consumers to pay in the spot they were actually shopping. If you came into a store, you were here there to buy a MacBook, the person in the blue shirt you were talking to the whole time can also sell you the actual product on the spot. They're not sending you to go stand in some long line to they make you stand in a line before you buy it if it just came out, but they don't make you stand in a line when you buy it, right? So change that experience. So the last thing you remember when you buy something is not the experience of frustration. It's actually buying the item and leaving and taking it home. The other one here on the slide is something called Easy Pay. This is much less well known, but it's a lot of fun. It's really self-checkout in the 21st century. It's an app you download from the Apple Store, from the iTunes Store, excuse me. And for small items, accessories, inexpensive $60 cables you might buy at Apple, you can pay for them yourself without interacting with anybody. So you scan them on your phone, they add it to your basket, and then it just gets checked out through your iTunes account. So you pay for it with your iTunes account. If you're not brave or criminal enough to go shoplifting, this is as close as you can get to shoplifting and get the thrill while still being legal. So, you know, walking out with something you paid for without talking to anybody, without a receipt in hand, without a bag is quite fun because you think you're about to get caught as you step out the door. Of course, that never happens. So what has Apple created? They've created this wonderful shopping commerce experience in the store with all these happy, creepy silhouette people being very excited about being Apple customers. But it's not just Apple. It is not just Apple. The same sort of thing, although implemented very differently, the same sort of mobile revolution happened at Starbucks, right? So Starbucks needed to find a way. I guess, you know, the drinks weren't addictive enough by themselves. They needed to find a way to interact with their consumers differently with regards to, of course, loyalty, right? So Starbucks reinvented mobile payments, not reinvented, or invented in their world mobile payments entirely based around loyalty. They started with gift cards. Gift cards were, for the most part, and in many cases still are, plastic cards. They mobilized gift cards. They mobilized gift cards and they tied it together with loyalty. They created a model where it was fun and easy to download a mobile app and store your gift card balance, maybe even link it to your bank account or credit card, and pay that way. To the point that today, or at least a few months ago, they got 7 million active mobile accounts. Starbucks does, 2 million of which use it every single week. How did they do that? They took they took payment, they took loyalty, they combined it all. They made it fun and interesting. They turned it sort of into a game. If you haven't seen this, you can, and there's a picture on the right there. When you buy a cup of coffee, a little gold star falls into a cup, and that's very exciting, right? That's great. And if you have 15 gold stars, it's like being in elementary school. You get a star. And then at the end of your, when you have 15 stars, you get a free cup of coffee, just like in elementary school. So, slightly less creepy than the Apple silhouette people. This lady, too, is very happy because he created a consumer experience that, that is delightful, shall we say. So all this stuff is going on. Apple is doing their thing. Starbucks is doing something else. We're doing stuff at VeriFone. Other merchants are starting to innovate in this space. And then there's this interesting side effect to the mobile revolution, to everybody getting smartphones. And I use Amazon.com as an example, but it could really be anybody, any online retailer. So here, who here has been to an Amazon showroom store? The answer is nobody, because they don't exist. But what did they do? They turned all these stores into showroom stores for them, right? They leveraged the fact that that everybody or a lot of people have smartphones. They leveraged the fact that they could put their app on a smartphone, and as you're shopping at any of these retailers or any other one, you could scan a UPC code with your phone and quickly do a price comparison. Is the item I'm about to buy cheaper at Amazon? And if I happen to have Amazon Prime, I can get it overnight, or certainly for free in 2 days. Is it cheaper? Will I wait? Will I just click this and it'll be delivered to my house? So they created this whole new environment where the online retailing channel actually was able to overlay on top of the brick and mortar channel when the two merchants weren't even related to each other. That's a problem, right? For brick and mortar retailers, that's a huge issue. The last thing you want is existing customers that have already elected to come to your store, which is a huge win. To then be there, use your store as a showroom and buy the item someplace else. I mean, it does not get much worse than that. So, it's time to rethink some things as merchants. You need to find a way to extend your aisles, to do this thing called omni-channel, an omni-channel approach to your business, where you blend your online and your offline channels so that there is a way for consumers to buy something that may be out of stock in your store, but they buy it through your online presence instead of going to some other store or some other online store. You need to find a way to tie loyalty in with with the shopping experience. You need to find a way to tie discounts, offers, coupons into this entire experience. You can't compartmentalize every one of these things and try to address them separately. It needs to be a single experience. So luckily, this has been happening, right? Tools and products and solutions have been made available to do this. We're looking at a hugely transforming industry. We're going from old payment to new commerce. I didn't realize that was a build slide. Excuse me here. All these things are going on, and I understand there was some folks up here talking about mobile wallets yesterday. We got a variety of large companies getting into mobile wallets, but Elliot just mentioned it, there are 150 mobile wallets out there now. Meanwhile, payment security moves on through PCI and EMV. We're getting EMV now in 2015 in the US, where we're going to replace all our MagStripe cards with chip cards. So that's happening. Meanwhile, we get the Groupons of the world issuing coupons and other offers and discounts. Omnichannel is starting to develop. So lots of things changing. In the mobile wallet space, it's been invigorating over the last few years. We as an industry are responsible for overhyping a lot of this. So now we're kind of in the trough of the hype cycle, the disillusionment stage, as some would call it, and we're finally starting to see some traction into mobile wallet rollouts and actual pilots and projects being successful. This consolidation amongst mobile wallet providers, all part of the natural cycle of this process. This term I hate, by the way, mobile wallet wars. I think this is a completely something that the industry has fabricated, right? It's really not. Just like we have a Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and Amex that are all relatively successful companies out there today, there's no reason that everything is going to consolidate into a single mobile wallet. So we need to get past this idea that there's this war going on and we're not going to do anything until a clear winner emerges. That's a crazy concept. At the same time, this is being approached, this whole mobile wallet thing, from other angles as well. It's not all payments based. Apple did a good job last year launching Apple Passbook, where you can store airline boarding passes, loyalty cards, movie tickets, etc., right in a native application. They then tied that together with geofencing and time-based actions, so that when you get close to your favorite Walgreens, the loyalty card pops right up. When it's close to the time that your flight is leaving, your boarding pass pops right up. So it's all about this. It's all about, with all these things going on, taking all of that, collapsing it all, and figuring out for you as a merchant what you should be doing and what you should be combining into these efforts to improve your consumer experience, the experience for your customers, right? And right now that looks like taking the payment side, but also taking the value-added side, loyalty, offers, discounts, coupons, all into a single mobile wallet. So that's the mobile wallet side. Consumers coming into your stores with mobile. What about the mobile POS side? Certainly, intuitively, you think of Apple. You think maybe of restaurants, where it makes sense to pay at the table as opposed to giving your card up and having it disappear for 20 minutes and then it comes back and you don't know what happened to it. You're already doing it on airplanes, right, where most airlines are going cashless now. If you want to buy something on a plane, they have a mobile device to take your payment. But it's also made its way, in no small part, thanks to VeriFone, made its way into mainstream retail. JCPenney's, Nordstrom's, all announced they're moving to a mobile infrastructure, right? Trying to get past this queuing, the single most frustrating experience while shopping, particularly during busy time, Christmas season, Black Friday, when a new product comes out, sales, to get past this horrible experience of having to stand in line right before you hand over your money. One great case study example that we executed early last year with a company called C Wonder. They're a high-end retailer, apparel retailer in New York. they had something that very few retailers have the luxury of having, which is they were new. They had no legacy infrastructure. They didn't have to worry about any cash register they bought in 1983, the fact that their POS application was written in COBOL and that they were still running MS-DOS in the back room, right? They didn't have any of that. They got to start over. That was a new store. They got to start over. They got to do something completely new. And what did they do? No store technology in the stores. They're using our mobile devices, which is basically an Apple iPod together with a VeriFone secure payment product called Payware Mobile. They're doing all the customer interaction, all the payment interaction on that device, and the communication from those devices is going straight out of the store into the cloud. There's no cash register in the store. The only legacy devices they deal with is a cash drawer for those people that show up with cash, and a receipt printer somewhere tucked away in the back for those folks that don't really enjoy getting an electronic receipt. That's it. Okay? So no store technology, really creating an experience that is nothing like what you see today in legacy stores. Urban Outfitters, another one that is committed to going mobile. So you're sitting here in San Francisco at 9 o'clock or whatever time it is, listening to Erik from VeriFone talk about all this stuff, and you go, wow, that's a lot of stuff, and that's pretty complicated. So, you know, I'll just kind of wait and see. We're not leaders in this space. We're not going to be, so we're just going to wait. So here's the risk in waiting. I hope I'm not the one making all that noise. Here's the risk in waiting. If you wait too long, you will ultimately, your competitors, and all of you have competitors, your competitors will create not just a mobile payment solution or accepting mobile wallets, but they'll create an environment where the entire shopping experience is going to be so fundamentally different, so much less disruptive to their daily lives, that consumers will start seeking out alternatives to your stores. And I'm not talking about, consumers saying, I must use you got a new NFC phone and I want to use this mobile wallet, I'll only shop in stores that accept my mobile wallet. I don't think it's that simple. I think it's the entire consumer experience. You need to, as a merchant, if you're not starting to think about how to create this new mobile, omni-channel sort of environment, you probably are going to be too late. So the time is now. So where do you start? Well, start by looking at mobile wallets, okay? That is something that's happening now. You got, I believe there was a gentleman up here talking about MCX yesterday, so MCX is coming out with their solution. ISIS has certainly been making great progress in their area. PayPal was up here yesterday talking about their cloud-based solution. Those are all good solutions, and you should be looking at all of them. You don't need to just pick one horse and bet on it. You can pick multiple solutions that make sense for you. So start thinking about how you enable these mobile wallets. So how do you do that? Well, worry about your hardware, worry about your software, because don't forget that every mobile wallet app also needs to have its counterpart on the acceptance equipment. That's both in your POS and the acceptance equipment from VeriFone. And then figure out a way to manage it, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. Start looking at how you create shopping experiences that we talked about earlier. Not just MPOS, but also extend that into what do I do with what we call retailing and clienteling. So when somebody comes back to your store, you actually have the infrastructure in place to say, hey, you were here last week, you bought that pair of pants. We didn't have your shirt in stock at the time because you're freakishly tall, but guess what? We now have a shirt that matches those pants, so you can buy that here today. So tying in inventory, tying in the shopping history on a particular customer, blending that all together and providing an experience to the customer that is very different from the what he might have experienced before. As far as mobile enablement is concerned, we have, if you haven't looked into this before, we have solutions for a number of different platforms. We've implemented it, I mentioned it earlier, with the iPod, the iPhone. We've done it with the iPad. We've done technology or platform agnostic solutions. We're coming out with an iPad mini solution here as well. And I'm very happy to announce this just was out on a press release this morning. Excuse me. We have announced a solution with Lenovo as well, Lenovo's ThinkPad Windows-based tablet, where we actually have a secure payment sleeve for the Lenovo ThinkPad-based tablet, and both Lenovo and VeriFone will be selling that solution into their respective channels as a Windows-based tablet solution. The reason that's important is because obviously VeriFone leads in payments, Lenovo leads in tablets and POS technology, but a lot of our customers are Windows-based and they haven't been able to jump on this mobile bandwagon because they're not necessarily jumping up and down to go iOS or Android. So now they're able to do it in a Windows environment through this partnership between Lenovo and VeriFone as well. In a utopian vision, eventually, when you're all done with next year, you're going to come back here. I'll be back up here. I'm going to ask you how you did and how your implementations went, and this is hopefully what you'll be doing, right? We'll get to a point where this mobile POS world that we talked about, where retailers are bringing mobile to their consumers in the aisles, and consumers bringing mobile into the stores through their smartphones. The two meet up, right? This can happen today. You can literally get a mobile-to-mobile transaction. And that is certainly, you know, a great vision to work towards. Two things to keep in mind. This is with my VeriFone hat on, right? Whatever you do, mobile wallets, EMV, which I mentioned earlier, MPOS, you have to make sure you can manage your estate. We've been doing magstripe for so long in this country, and magstripe hasn't fundamentally changed in 50 years, right? The way we read a magstripe card. Things are changing now. If you think you can still implement some of these things without having a way to manage all those devices and push out a new mobile wallet update, push out a new spec change, push out a new UI, then you're gonna not be very happy in a few years. You have to make sure whatever you do, put the infrastructure in place behind it to continuously update those devices and that technology. And last but not least, security. Everybody at VeriFone wakes up every morning and goes to bed every night thinking about security. Everything else we do is secondary. Mobile POS, mobile wallets, it's all secondary. So whatever we've put out there certainly has been encrypted end-to-end and has all these wonderful things to protect you as merchants from winding up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal as being breached, right? So as you innovate, as you improve the consumer experience, make sure you do it in a secure way, and certainly we have plenty of folks that can help with that. So, disrupting consumers is bad. Do you disrupt them? No, you don't. So start thinking of disruption in a different, sort of in a different context. You want people like this. You want the exciting silhouette, creepy people. You want the Starbucks lady being very excited about her coffee, or you want this lady being way too excited about going shopping. That's the experience we're trying to get to, and I'd encourage you to look at the overall consumer experience a little bit differently. I'm going to be around for the remainder of this event here and there, so if you want to chat about any of this, hit me up, and you can hit me up on Twitter as well if that's a preferred method. So thank you very much.